The twin suns of the red rock expanse hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the jagged canyons. The air was dry and sharp, filled with the scent of dust and iron. From the distant cliffs, a lone rider moved steadily along the narrow trail, his boots kicking up small clouds of red sand. He was a human cowboy, known in scattered tales across the frontier as Jace Hawthorne, though most had never seen him in person. His worn leather coat flapped slightly in the wind, and the wide brim of his hat shaded his sharp eyes, which scanned the horizon with quiet alertness. Jace had traveled far from the settlements of the outer colonies, following rumors of strange activity among the canyons. Traders whispered of alien raiders, a group called the Apache women, who had been attacking isolated communities and leaving trails of chaos behind them. Most settlers spoke of them with fear, calling them deadly and unstoppable. But Jace had never been a man to turn away from danger. He believed in facing challenges head-on, and the stories of the Apache women sparked a curious fire in his heart. As he rode deeper into the canyon, the wind carried faint sounds, metallic clinks and low murmurs. Jace slowed his horse, ears straining. Ahead, he saw movement among the rocks, figures darting from one shadow to another, agile and precise. His breath caught for a moment, but only out of admiration. The Apache women were unlike anything he had seen. Their lithe bodies moved with grace and power, their armor reflecting the dim sunlight in sharp glints. Weapons were strapped across their backs and hips, and their eyes, dark and intense, watched every inch of the canyon with alert suspicion. Jace dismounted quietly, tying his horse to a sturdy outcrop. He had no intention of surprising them with violence. Humans had strange customs, and one of the most important was mercy and honor, something the Apache women would not yet understand. He stepped into the open, hands raised slightly, showing he carried no weapon ready to fire. His voice was calm but firm as he spoke. "I come in peace," he said. "I don't want to fight. I only wish to talk." For a long moment, the figures froze. Then one stepped forward, taller than the others, with a spear held loosely in her hand. Her eyes were sharp, calculating, and a flicker of amusement crossed her face. "Peace?" she asked, her voice low and melodic but carrying an edge of steel. "Humans speak of peace while wandering into the lands of the Apache women. Your words are empty." Jace smiled faintly, knowing that words alone would not earn trust. "I suppose you'll have to judge that for yourselves," he said. "I've faced storms, beasts, and more than my fair share of danger. I'm not here to die without reason, or to make others die." The warrior considered him for a long moment, and Jace sensed the weight of her gaze. In the silence of the canyon, the only sounds were the whisper of the wind and the distant echo of falling rocks. Finally, she gestured to the others, and the women moved closer, forming a cautious circle around him. Jace noted how they communicated without words, subtle glances, small movements, and the tilt of their heads. Their coordination was impressive, almost seamless, but it lacked the improvisational creativity of humans. That, Jace thought quietly, was his advantage. "You are bold to walk into our territory alone," the warrior said finally. "Most humans flee at the first sight of us. Perhaps they've never had a reason to stand their ground," Jace replied. "I do." There was a long pause. The Apache women exchanged silent words among themselves, then stepped back slightly, leaving a space around him. One of them, younger than the rest, with short-cropped hair and bright, intelligent eyes, tilted her head curiously. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why do you not fear us?" Jace's eyes softened. He could sense her curiosity, a spark of something beyond mere survival instinct. "Because fear solves nothing," he said. "I've learned that courage, cleverness, and respect go farther than fear or anger. And because I believe in giving mercy before asking for it. That is what makes humans strong." The warrior leader laughed softly, a sound that was almost a hiss, but it carried no mockery. "Strange. Humans speak of strength through mercy?" she said. "In our world, the weak beg and the strong take. Perhaps your way is easier." Jace admitted. But easier doesn't make it better. There's a power in choosing not to kill. A courage in showing respect even when it is not returned. Another pause. The Apache women circled closer, intrigued despite themselves. One of them tapped a long blade against her palm. A warning gesture. A test of reaction. Jace remained calm. He let the sound echo in the canyon, steady and unafraid. Interesting, the leader said. Very well. You may walk among us for a short while. But know this. If you deceive us, if you bring harm, there will be no mercy for you. Not from me. Not from any of us. Jace nodded. I wouldn't expect any less, he said. And I offer you the same in return. No harm from me, unless it is absolutely necessary. The tension remained thick, but slowly, the women began to lower their weapons just a fraction. Curiosity was beginning to outweigh hostility. Jace sensed the shift and knew that the first step had been taken. Humans had a way of turning fear into respect, and he had just demonstrated it. As they moved together through the canyon, Jace observed the land through the eyes of both a human and a tactician. He noticed hidden ledges, the paths of small creatures, and the places where water might collect after the rare storms. He spoke little, letting the Apache women see his intelligence not through words but through action. They noticed how he avoided hazards, how he calculated jumps and climbs with ease. There was a spark of admiration, faint but unmistakable, among the warriors. That evening, as the suns dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in fiery oranges and purples, they made camp near a narrow stream. The Apache women lit small fires, their faces glowing in the flickering light. Jace sat across from them, careful not to invade their space but close enough to share warmth. For hours, they sat in silence, watching the sky. Then the youngest of the group spoke again. You are strange, she said quietly. Most humans would fight without hesitation or run without thought. But you choose to face danger with your hands open, not clenched around a weapon. Jace smiled faintly. Strangeness can be useful, he said. It makes people notice things they would otherwise ignore. And sometimes, it saves lives. The leader, who had spoken so little since the standoff, finally added her voice to the conversation. Perhaps there is a place for humans after all, she said, but do not think this makes you safe. The canyon tests all who enter it, and it does not favor mercy alone. I do not expect it to, Jace replied, but it does favor those who think, and those who act with heart. Humans have been through worse than canyons and alien warriors. We survive because we adapt, because we care, and because we refuse to be broken by fear alone. The Apache women looked at him, silent, their expressions unreadable. Yet Jace felt the first signs of respect in their eyes. It was faint, like the first hint of a sunrise, but it was there. That night, as Jace lay beneath the stars, he thought of the trials that lay ahead. The Apache women were skilled and dangerous, yes, but they were also curious. And curiosity could be guided. If he could survive the canyon with honor, if he could earn their trust even a little, then perhaps humans could teach even the fiercest warriors a new kind of strength. One born not of fear, but of courage, cleverness, and mercy. The twin suns had set. Shadows filled the canyon. The Apache women slept lightly, always alert, while Jace drifted into a careful rest, knowing that tomorrow, the true test would begin. And when it came, he would show them what humans were truly capable of, strength that was not just in muscle, but in heart, mind, and unshakable spirit. For now, the canyon was quiet. But the wind carried a promise of challenge, of respect, and of a story that would be told long after the suns had set and the canyon had grown silent again. The morning sun rose slowly over the red rock expanse, bathing the canyon walls in a warm, golden light. Jace Hawthorne stood at the edge of the camp, stretching his arms and surveying the terrain. The Apache women were already awake, moving with silent precision, their eyes scanning the rocks and cliffs, as if every shadow held a secret. Jace knew that today would be the real test. The first meeting had been just an introduction, a chance to show he was not a threat. But now, the Apache women would challenge him to prove that he was worthy of their respect, and he would have to rely not on brute strength alone, but on the cunning, endurance, and resourcefulness that made humans unique. The leader of the Apache women, Talara, approached him, her steps light but deliberate. Her spear was still in hand, but her posture was less threatening than yesterday. "You have survived the night," she said, her voice calm but firm. "That is no small achievement. Many have failed in this canyon before dawn." Jace tipped his hat slightly. "I believe in learning quickly. Night is always a teacher." Talara's eyes narrowed slightly, as if measuring his words. Then she gestured toward the cliffs above. "Today, you will prove your courage, your strength, and your mind. Follow me. Do not fall behind." Jace followed silently, moving carefully along the winding trail. The canyon grew narrower, the cliffs rising sharply on both sides. Loose rocks and hidden crevices made the path treacherous. The Apache women moved easily, leaping from rock to rock, their balance perfect, their steps precise. Jace kept pace, using every ounce of skill and experience he had gathered over years on the frontier. The first challenge came quickly. A wide chasm split the canyon, its depth dizzying. A narrow natural bridge of stone spanned the gap. But it was slick and uneven. The Apache women crossed without hesitation, but Jace paused at the edge, studying the stones. He took a deep breath, trusting his instincts. Step by step, he moved carefully, testing each stone before putting his weight on it. Halfway across, the bridge trembled beneath him. Loose rocks shifting, he froze for a heartbeat, then adjusted his balance, lowering his center of gravity and moving slowly. His heart raced, but he did not panic. The last step brought him safely to the other side. Talara watched him with a faint smile. "You are careful. That is good. Many humans rush and fall. But caution alone is not enough in this canyon." Jace nodded. "I know. It is not just speed or strength that matters here. It is observation, patience, and thought." The second challenge was a test of endurance. A steep slope loomed ahead, covered in loose gravel and jagged rocks. Talara motioned for him to climb. The Apache women moved swiftly, leaping and scrambling upward with ease. Jace gritted his teeth and began the ascent, using his hands and feet, feeling each rock shift beneath him. His muscles burned, but he did not stop. Humans were built to endure, and he knew that if he kept moving, step by step, he would reach the top. Halfway up, a rock gave way under his hand. He slid, narrowly catching himself on a ledge. The canyon walls echoed with the sound of shifting stones. Jace's mind raced. He could have fallen, injured himself badly. But he stayed calm. He looked for a safer path, adjusted his footing, and continued. Finally, he reached the top, breathing heavily but triumphant. Talara nodded again. "You endure pain and danger without giving up. That is respect. But endurance alone does not make you strong." Jace wiped the sweat from his brow. "Strength is more than muscles," he said. "It is mind, courage, and heart." The third challenge was the most unusual. Talara led him to a narrow canyon floor where the wind howled, carrying with it the cries of unseen creatures. Scattered across the ground were strange alien plants with sharp thorns and vines that moved slightly, as if sensing motion. In the center of the clearing, a small herd of desert beasts grazed. Cautious and alert. "Capture one," Talara said simply. Jace froze for a moment, considering the task. These were not ordinary animals. They were intelligent in subtle ways, quick to sense danger. He did not rush forward blindly. Instead, he observed, he noticed how the beasts moved, the timing of their steps, the way they reacted to sound. Using a combination of human cleverness and patience, he slowly closed the distance, crouching, moving quietly, and using a long vine to gently loop around one of the animal's legs. It struggled, but he did not panic. He used calm pressure and steady movements to secure it without harm. When he finally stood, holding the captured beast carefully, the Apache women regarded him with quiet surprise. He had succeeded where brute force might have failed. "You use your mind, not just your strength," Talara said. "Few can do this. You are different." Jace placed the beast gently on the ground, letting it run free. "True strength is in control, not domination," he said. "Every life has value, even in a challenge." The final challenge was one of agility and quick thinking. A sudden rock slide blocked the trail ahead, and the only way forward was a narrow ledge that wound around a cliff face hundreds of feet above the canyon floor. Talara and the Apache women moved confidently, leaping from ledge to ledge. Jace studied the path, noting loose stones and gaps that could trip him. Step by step, he advanced, using his hands to stabilize himself. A sudden gust of wind nearly knocked him off balance, but he held firm, adjusting his weight and staying calm. Midway across, a rock shifted, threatening to send him tumbling. Jace stopped, thought quickly, and used a small vine he had gathered earlier to anchor himself temporarily, moving safely to the next ledge. When he reached the other side, he was exhausted but triumphant. The Apache women were silent, observing him with a mixture of awe and respect. Even Talara's usually impassive face showed a trace of admiration. "You have faced the canyon's trials and survived," she said. "You are not only brave, but clever, patient, and cautious. These are human traits that are rare in warriors." Jace nodded, feeling a quiet pride. "I have learned from many dangers, in many places," he said. "And I have learned that courage without thought can be foolish, and strength without heart can be empty." Talara's eyes softened slightly. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as we believed," she said. "There is a strange power in your kind. A power that is not only physical but deeper." As they rested for the evening, Jace and the Apache women sat near the edge of a cliff, watching the twin suns set in a blaze of color. The canyon was quiet, filled only with the sound of wind and distant creatures. Jace felt a sense of connection forming, fragile but real. He had proven himself in the canyon, not by killing or dominating, but by showing the human way: observation, courage, and respect. Talara approached him and spoke quietly. "You have earned a measure of our trust. But the canyon is only the beginning. There are dangers beyond these walls that will test you even more. And yet, I sense that you may survive, and even help us in ways we do not yet understand." Jace looked at her, his eyes steady. "I am not here to conquer. I am here to survive, to learn, and to show that humans have more to offer than just weapons and strength. If we can work together, perhaps we can face whatever comes next together." For the first time, Talara allowed a small smile to touch her face. "Perhaps," she said. "Perhaps indeed." The night fell, and the stars began to shimmer above the canyon. The Apache women made camp, their firelight flickering against the rock walls. Jace sat quietly, thinking of the challenges he had faced today. Each trial had tested not only his body, but his mind and spirit. He knew that the journey was far from over, that the true challenges lay ahead, but he felt ready. Humans had a strange way of surviving. They relied on heart as much as on skill, on courage as much as on strength. And in the canyon, surrounded by alien warriors who had once seemed unbeatable, Jace Hawthorne had proven that humans could endure, adapt, and even earn respect in a world that was not their own. And so, as the night deepened and the fires burned low, Jace rested, ready for whatever trials tomorrow would bring, knowing that the canyon had taught him something crucial. True strength is found not only in the arm, but in the mind and the heart. The Apache women watched him from the shadows, curiosity and admiration growing. A bond, fragile, but promising, had begun to form, and in the days to come, that bond would be tested and strengthened by dangers even greater than the canyon itself. The red rock expanse had grown restless. The wind carried a strange tension, whispering through the jagged cliffs and dry valleys. Jace Hawthorne rode quietly along a narrow ridge, his eyes sharp and alert. The Apache women, who had accepted his presence and watched his courage in the canyon, followed him cautiously. They had not spoken much that morning, each of them sensing something unusual in the air. Jace's instincts, honed by years of frontier travel, told him that danger was approaching something far greater than the challenges of the canyon or the trials he had faced with the Apache women. Talara, the leader, paused and raised her hand, signaling the group to stop. "Do you feel it too?" she asked, her voice low, almost a whisper. Jace nodded. "Yes. Something is coming. And it is not small. Be ready." From the horizon, a dark shape emerged, moving swiftly across the rocky plains. As it drew closer, the outlines became clear. Massive armored vehicles rolled over the terrain, their engines roaring like beasts. Figures in black, spiked armor could be seen atop the machines, their weapons glinting in the sunlight. "This is no raiding party," Jace said, his voice calm but firm. "This is an army." Talara's eyes narrowed. "Krith," she said, a name that carried fear among the Apache women. "He has come to claim the expanse. We cannot fight him alone." Jace dismounted, tying his horse to a rock, and turned to face the women. "Then we don't fight alone," he said. "We fight together." The Apache women exchanged glances. Trust had grown over the past days, but this was a different matter. Krith was a warlord known for his ruthlessness, and few had ever survived his campaigns. Yet, there was something in Jace's calm demeanor, in the way he measured the land and the threat, that made them hesitate. "You propose an alliance?" Talara asked, her tone skeptical but not dismissive. "Yes," Jace replied. "We combine our strengths. You know the terrain. I know how to think in ways you may not expect. Together, we can face him." There was silence. Then, slowly, Talara nodded. "Very well. We follow your plan. But know this, if you fail, many will die." Jace's gaze hardened. "I do not intend to fail. But success will require more than courage and strength. We must use our minds. And we must act as one." The group moved swiftly to a vantage point overlooking a narrow valley. Krith's army was advancing, massive machines kicking up clouds of dust and sand. Jace studied the formation carefully. He noticed patterns in their movement, weaknesses in their alignment, and paths where ambushes could be set. "This valley is narrow," he said. "They cannot spread out here. That works to our advantage. We can set traps, use the rocks, and strike where they least expect it." Talara's eyes widened. "You see what we cannot," she said quietly. "Humans. You think differently." Jace smiled faintly. "We survive by thinking ahead. Brute strength is important, but cleverness is what keeps us alive." Oops. The Apache women prepared their weapons, while Jace instructed them on his plan. They would lure Krith's forces into the narrow pass, where ambushes could be set along the cliffs and ledges. Rocks would be dislodged, traps would be sprung, and the humans and Apache women would strike together at the enemy's weak points. As they waited, Jace walked among the group, observing the women. Their confidence had grown, but fear was still present. He spoke quietly, sharing small lessons from his life on the frontier. "Fear is natural," he said, "but courage is acting even when fear is there. Every challenge we face is easier if we face it with your mind clear and your heart steady." The women listened, absorbing his words. Jace's calm presence, his confidence and thoughtfulness, began to change them. They saw humans not just as survivors, but as leaders, capable of guiding others even in the face of overwhelming danger. By midday, Krith's army reached the valley. The ground trembled under the weight of the machines. Jace and the Apache women held their positions, hidden along the cliffs and behind rocks. The wind carried the scent of oil and metal, the sound of engines growing louder with every passing second. "Now," Jace whispered, and the ambush began. Rocks were pushed from ledges, crashing down onto the advancing machines, crushing wheels and armor. Hidden pits swallowed smaller vehicles, while the Apache women struck with precision, disabling weapons and confusing the enemy. Krith's forces had not expected such tactics. They tried to spread out, but the narrow valley forced them together, making them vulnerable. Jace moved quickly, using every skill he had learned in the canyon. He directed the Apache women, coordinating strikes, predicting enemy moves, and exploiting weaknesses. His strategies were unconventional, yet effective. Where brute force alone might have failed, his planning and ingenuity turned the tide. Krith himself appeared on the battlefield, his black armor gleaming in the sun. He rode a massive war machine, and his presence struck fear into the hearts of many. But Jace did not waver. He studied Krith, noting the patterns of his attacks and the weaknesses in his machine. "You cannot win by force alone," Jace shouted to the Apache women. "Stay clever. Use the terrain. Let him fall into our traps." The battle raged. Krith's forces were relentless, but Jace's plan held. Rocks crushed machines, traps ensnared warriors, and the combined human and Apache women forces moved with precision and unity. It was a fight of mind as much as muscle, and slowly, Krith's army began to falter. At one point, Krith's machine broke through part of the ambush, heading straight for Jace. The cowboy stood his ground, calculating quickly. Using a fallen boulder and a clever diversion, he redirected the machine into a narrow crevice where it became stuck. Krith roared in frustration, his power diminished. Talara watched in amazement. "He is not just brave. He is brilliant," she said quietly. "Humans, you think in ways that surprise even the strongest warriors." Jace caught his breath, his eyes scanning the battlefield. The fight was not over, but the momentum had shifted. Krith's forces were in disarray, and the Apache women were gaining confidence, inspired by the human leader among them. As the sun began to set, Krith called a retreat. His army withdrew, battered and beaten, leaving the valley in the hands of Jace and the Apache women. The wind carried the dust away, revealing the extent of the battle. Rocks and debris were scattered across the valley floor, and the echoes of conflict faded into silence. Talara approached Jace, her expression a mix of respect and awe. "You have done what many thought impossible," she said. "You have turned the tide. Humans, perhaps there is more to your kind than we realized." Jace nodded, feeling a quiet pride. "We survive because we think, because we adapt, and because we care. Strength is not only in the arm, but in the mind and heart." Today, that made the difference. The Apache women gathered around him, their faces lit by the fading sunlight. For the first time, they truly saw him as more than a stranger. He was a leader, a strategist, and an ally. Jace had not only fought alongside them, he had shown them that humans could be trusted, even admired. As night fell, Jace and the Apache women camped in the valley. Fires flickered against the cliffs, casting shadows that danced across the rocks. Talara sat beside him, her voice thoughtful. "The canyon tested your body and mind, but today, you tested our hearts. You showed us that humans are not only strong, but clever, brave, and worthy of trust." Jace looked at her, his eyes steady. "I did not do this alone," he said. "We did this together. Strength grows when we combine courage with cleverness, and when we fight not just for ourselves, but for each other." The Apache women nodded, understanding the lesson. Krith had been defeated, but Jace knew this was only the beginning. Greater challenges awaited, and the bond between humans and the Apache women would be tested again. But for now, victory was theirs, and the Red Rock Expanse had seen what humans could accomplish, not just with muscle, but with mind, heart, and unshakable spirit. That night, as Jace gazed at the stars above the canyon, he felt a quiet sense of purpose. Humans had faced countless dangers across the frontier, and they had survived by relying on courage, cleverness, and compassion. The Apache women had seen this, and in doing so, they had begun to understand that humans were not simply another species, They were a force of resilience, ingenuity, and hope. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But Jace Hawthorne was ready. The Apache women would follow him, not out of fear, but out of respect. And together, they would face whatever dangers awaited them in the vast and untamed Red Rock Expanse. The Red Rock Expanse was quieter now, but the air still carried tension. Jace Hawthorne rode with the Apache women along the rocky paths, each step measured and careful. The canyon had tested them all. But the battle against Krith's army had forged something new, a fragile trust, slowly growing into something stronger. Talara led the group, her spear in hand, eyes scanning every shadow. Behind her, the younger warriors followed, some curious, others wary. Among them was Nia, a fierce and intelligent fighter, who had watched Jace closely since their first encounter. There was a quiet strength in her, and Jace sensed that she was not only observing him but learning from him, learning the human way of thinking, the patience and courage that had allowed him to survive where many would have fallen. They were tracking remnants of Krith's forces, hoping to prevent a counterattack. The sun beat down, the wind blowing dust into their eyes, but the group pressed on. Jace noticed the smallest details, the footprints of enemies, the breaks in vegetation, the faint smell of machine oil carried on the wind. Every observation gave them an edge. Suddenly, a distant cry broke the silence. Jace froze, listening. It was a sharp, desperate sound, Nia's voice. Without hesitation, Jace sprinted toward the source, weaving through the rocks with the agility of someone who had spent years surviving harsh lands. Behind him, the Apache women followed as best they could, but Jace reached the spot first. Nia had been ambushed. Krith's scouts, small but lethal, had hidden among the rocks, attacking from multiple angles. She was pinned down, her spear struggling to hold back two attackers at once. "Hold on," Jace shouted, drawing his own weapon. His movements were quick but deliberate. He didn't attack recklessly. Instead, he used strategy. A well-aimed throw of a small rock distracted one attacker, while he used the terrain to gain higher ground. Then, with precision, he disarmed the other, forcing both to retreat. Nia looked at him, her chest heaving. You came for me," she said, voice trembling slightly. "Why?" Jace crouched beside her, lowering his weapon but keeping alert. "Because I promised we protect each other," he said simply. "Courage is not just fighting your own battles, it's helping others survive theirs." For a moment, Nia stared at him, trying to understand. The human had risked his own life for her. Not out of obligation, not out of strategy, but out of genuine care. In that moment, the young warrior realized that humans were not only clever and strong, they were capable of trust, loyalty, and something she had never expected: heart. Talara and the other Apache women arrived shortly after, assessing the situation. "He is different," Talara said quietly. "He fights with his mind and his heart, not just his weapons. Perhaps humans are stronger than we believed." Jace helped Nia to her feet. "You're hurt," he said, gently checking a scrape on her arm. "But you're lucky. This could have gone badly." Nia nodded, still catching her breath. I owe you my life," she admitted. Jace shook his head. "No debt here. Actions matter more than words. But if you want to remember something, remember this: trust and loyalty can be stronger than any weapon." The group moved on, but the incident had changed the dynamics. Nia walked beside Jace, her usual cautious demeanor softened by gratitude and curiosity. She watched him closely, noticing how he scanned the terrain, calculated risks, and remained calm even in danger. She began to see humans not as strange outsiders but as capable allies, whose ways could complement her own. That evening, they made camp near a narrow canyon stream. The fires flickered, casting warm light on tired but alert faces. Jace sat slightly apart, sharpening his weapons and checking the traps they had set. Nia joined him, sitting silently beside him. "You fight differently than we do," she said finally. Not just clever, but with care. You think about what comes after, not just the moment. Jace looked at her, a faint smile on his face. Humans survive because we think ahead. We consider consequences, not just the fight. Strength is useful, but it's only one part of survival. Nia's eyes softened. I never thought like that. In my world, strength is power, and power is victory. But you show another way. Jace nodded. Another way can be stronger. Sometimes, it's not the one who strikes hardest who wins, but the one who protects, plans, and inspires others to act with you. Talara watched from across the fire, a thoughtful expression on her face. She had seen many warriors, many clever humans in stories, but none like Jace. His courage, intellect, and compassion made him extraordinary. The bond forming between him and Nia was also a sign, a symbol of what could happen when humans and the Apache women worked together. The night deepened, and the stars shimmered above the canyon. Jace's mind wandered briefly to the battles that might come. Krith had been defeated for now, but he would return. And next time, the stakes would be higher. Yet, Jace felt ready. Humans had faced countless dangers, and they had survived by relying on courage, cleverness, and trust. In the days that followed, Jace continued to train and guide the Apache women. He taught them tactics that combined their agility and strength with human strategy. They practiced ambushes, quick retreats, and coordinated attacks. Nia was a fast learner, absorbing every lesson with sharp attention. Over time, she began to mirror his approach, thinking ahead, observing patterns, and considering consequences. The bond between them grew not just as teacher and student, but as comrades who respected each other deeply. In her eyes, Jace was not just a human. He was a symbol of possibility, showing her that strength could come from more than weapons alone. One evening, as they rested atop a cliff overlooking the expanse, Nia spoke again. "You saved me," she said softly. "I don't know how to repay that." Also, Jace looked at her steadily. "You don't repay it. What matters is that we protect each other. That is what makes a team strong. That is what makes humans, and allies, survive." She nodded, understanding more than words could say. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the canyon. The Apache women gathered around, their faces lit by the glow of the fires. Jace felt a sense of unity forming, stronger than any he had known. They were no longer strangers or enemies, they were a team, bound by shared survival and mutual respect. Suddenly, a distant sound carried through the canyon, the faint but unmistakable hum of engines. Jace stiffened. Krith's forces? Or scouts sent to test their defenses? Either way, it was a reminder that the battle was far from over. Talara placed a hand on his shoulder. "The future is uncertain," she said. "But you have changed the way we see humans. You fight with courage, with mind, and with heart. That is something rare." Jace nodded. "And it is something worth protecting," he said. "Together, we can face whatever comes next. Humans are strong alone, but even stronger with allies who understand that strength is more than just force." As night fell fully, the canyon grew quiet. Jace and the Apache women settled into their camp, each of them alert, but trusting in the bond that had been formed. Nia stayed near him, and he could sense her growing confidence, not just as a warrior but as someone who had begun to see the value of human thinking and heart. The Red Rock expanse was vast and dangerous, but for the first time, Jace felt that he and his new allies could face it together. Trust had been tested, bonds had been formed, and respect had been earned. And in the darkness, as the fires burned low and the stars glittered above, Jace Hawthorne knew that the true battle was not just against Krith, it was to prove that humans could inspire, lead, and survive in ways that even the fiercest warriors could respect. Tomorrow, the challenges would grow. But tonight, they had found something stronger than fear or victory. They had found trust, respect, and the beginnings of a true bond, the kind that could withstand anything the Red Rock expanse might throw at them. The morning sun rose slowly over the Red Rock expanse, casting long, golden rays across the jagged cliffs. Jace Hawthorne stood atop a high ridge, surveying the valley below. The Apache women gathered behind him, their faces focused, their weapons ready. Today would decide everything. Krith had returned, his army larger and more determined than before, and the fate of the canyon and perhaps the entire region rested on their shoulders. Jace took a deep breath. His mind raced with strategies, contingencies, and possibilities. The lessons from the canyon and the ambush had prepared them, but this battle would require every ounce of courage, cleverness, and teamwork they had. He glanced at Nia, who stood beside him, her eyes sharp and alert. She had grown stronger, faster, and wiser under his guidance. Now, she would play a key role in the fight ahead. Talara approached quietly, her spear resting on her shoulder. "Are you ready, Jace?" she asked, her tone calm but serious. Jace nodded. "As ready as we can be. Remember what we've practiced. Use the terrain. Think ahead. Protect each other. That is what makes us strong." The Apache women tightened their formation, and together they moved down the ridge toward the valley floor. Krith's army was already visible in the distance, a rolling mass of black-armored warriors, massive war machines, and mechanical beasts. The ground trembled with their advance, and the wind carried the metallic scent of oil and machinery. Jace paused briefly, analyzing the enemy. "They will charge straight for us," he said. "But the valley is narrow. That works in our favor. We'll split their forces, isolate their leaders, and use traps. Focus on strategy, not just brute force." The Apache women nodded, their trust in him absolute. They had seen his courage, his mind, and his heart. They knew he would lead them wisely. As Krith's forces entered the valley, Jace gave the signal. Rocks were dislodged from the cliffs above, crashing onto the advancing machines. Traps they had set pits covered with thin layers of gravel swallowed smaller vehicles and unprepared warriors. The Apache women leaped from ledges and rocks, striking swiftly with precision. Every move had been planned, yet there was room for improvisation, and Jace's guidance allowed them to adapt to unexpected attacks. Krith roared in fury from his massive war machine. "Humans! Apache women! You will pay for defiance," he bellowed, his voice echoing across the canyon. Jace did not flinch. He had anticipated Krith's tactics and weaknesses. He moved swiftly, coordinating the attacks, guiding the Apache women to strike in unison, exploiting gaps in the enemy's formation. His mind worked like a well-oiled machine, anticipating every move and countermove. The battle raged fiercely. Machines toppled, weapons clashed, and the ground shook under the force of the conflict. Krith's army was relentless, but Jace's strategy held firm. He used the terrain to funnel enemies into narrow paths, where the Apache women's agility and skill could overwhelm them. Each ambush, each trap, each coordinated strike weakened Krith's forces, forcing them into retreat after retreat. At one point, Krith broke through a section of the defenses, charging directly toward the humans and Apache women. Jace's heart raced, but he remained calm. He signaled Nia, who moved swiftly to intercept the warlord's forces, drawing attention away from the main group. Jace used the distraction to flank Krith, sending a series of precise attacks that disabled critical components of the war machine. Sparks flew, metal groaned, and Krith's fury grew. "You are clever, human," Krith shouted. "But cleverness will not save you," Jace replied calmly. "Cleverness and courage together can overcome even the strongest." The final phase of the battle arrived. Krith, enraged, attempted to rally his forces for one last assault. Jace anticipated this, positioning the Apache women and himself to block the advance. He used misdirection, drawing Krith's troops into traps while cutting off their escape routes. The ground became a maze of obstacles, fires, and toppled machines. Krith's army was falling apart, unable to adapt to the humans' unpredictable strategies. At a critical moment, Krith himself was forced from his war machine, standing exposed on the valley floor. He swung a massive blade, but Jace was faster. moving with the skill of someone who had survived countless battles. He dodged, parried, and used Krith's momentum against him, forcing the warlord backward into a pit trap they had prepared earlier. Krith roared in frustration, trapped and defeated. The remaining enemy forces, seeing their leader captured, began to retreat. The valley fell silent, except for the wind and the echoes of battle. Jace lowered his weapon, breathing heavily but steady. Around him, the Apache women gathered, their expressions a mix of relief and admiration. Talara approached Jace, her face serious but filled with respect. "You have done what many thought impossible," she said. "You fought not only with strength, but with wisdom and heart. Humans, perhaps there is more to your kind than we believed." Jace shook his head slightly. "We survive because we think, because we adapt, and because we trust each other. Strength is important, but heart and mind are just as strong. Today, that made the difference." Nia stepped forward, her eyes shining. "You saved us," she said softly. "Not just our lives, but our pride, our hope. You gave us a way to see that humans are not just clever or strong. They are more. You are more." Jace smiled faintly. "We all did this together. Humans are strong, but strength alone is not enough. It is the courage to work together, the wisdom to plan, and the heart to protect each other that wins battles." Talara nodded. "You have changed us, Jace Hawthorne. You have shown us that humans can inspire, lead, and fight with honor. From now on, the Apache women will remember this day, and the lessons you have taught us." The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the valley. Jace looked around at the canyon, the burned and battered ground, the victorious Apache women, and the captured enemies. A sense of quiet triumph filled him. They had faced impossible odds, yet human ingenuity, courage, and heart had prevailed. That night, as the campfires burned against the cliffs, the Apache women gathered around Jace. Nia sat beside him, her trust in him evident. Talara raised a hand, in a gesture of respect. "We honor you," she said. "Not because you are human, but because you are brave, clever, and true. You have given us hope, and that is a gift greater than any weapon." Jace's heart swelled. "And I honor all of you," he said, "for your courage, your skill, and your willingness to trust someone different. Strength grows when we fight together. And today we proved that. The bond between humans and the Apache women had been forged in fire, battle, and trust. They were no longer strangers or enemies. They were allies, united by respect and shared victory. In the days that followed, the Red Rock Expanse began to heal. Settlements rebuilt, trade resumed, and tales of the human cowboy and the Apache women spread across the frontier. Jace's story became a legend not of conquest or domination, but of courage, cleverness, and heart. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were heroes in a world that had once doubted them. Nia stayed close to Jace, her admiration deepening into friendship and trust. Talara continued to lead her warriors, now inspired by the humans' lessons, blending their agility and strength with strategy and foresight. Together, they formed a force unlike any the Expanse had seen, a force built not only on weapons, but on mind, heart, and unity. One evening, as the twin suns set over the canyon, Nia spoke quietly to Jace. "You offered me your hand in battle, your trust, and your guidance. You have my respect, and something more. Your heart, and your name." Jace looked at her, surprised but steady. "And I give it freely," he said. "Not just my name, but my friendship, my trust, and my commitment. Together, we are stronger than any enemy." The Apache women watched in quiet awe. The gesture was more than symbolic. It represented the bond that had grown from fear to respect, from mistrust to unity. The human had not conquered them with force. He had earned their loyalty and admiration through courage, cleverness, and heart. As night fell, the stars sparkled above the canyon. The Red Rock Expanse was vast and dangerous, but now it was filled with allies, friends, and hope. Jace Hawthorne had proven that humans were more than survivors. They were leaders, inspirers, and heroes. And in the quiet of the canyon, under the twin suns and the watchful eyes of the Apache women, a legend was born, a tale of courage, cleverness, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Jace's name would be remembered, not as a conqueror, but as a symbol of heart, trust, and the strength that comes from unity. The Red Rock Expanse had changed forever, and humans would forever be known as a species that could inspire hope, survive the impossible, and turn even fearsome enemies into allies. The night was peaceful. Fires burned low. And as Jace looked up at the stars, he knew that the greatest battles were not just fought with weapons, but with mind, courage, and heart, and that humans, in their unpredictable way, could achieve greatness beyond imagination.